On this episode, we're debuting an all-new look to the show. We're also going to talk about sleeper hits that no one is buying. We talk about the Toyota Prius Prime, and we question how clean is your electric car. Next on Talking Cars. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Talking Cars with Consumer Reports. I'm Mike Monticello.
I'm Gabe Shenhar.
And I'm Mike Quincy.
For those of you watching the video version of this podcast, you can see we have a new look going on this week. And this is something we're going to be trying over the next several episodes. We want to try and up the production quality of the show. For instance, we've got these fancy new microphones that should hopefully make us sound a lot better. May not make us look any better.
No, we're still pretty ugly.
But the goal here is to have it feel more like you guys are here with us, sitting around this table, talking about the things that you want to talk about related to cars. That's what it's really all about. And because of that, we want to hear your feedback. We want to know what you like, what you don't like. So you can reach out to us by commenting on YouTube, or you can send us an email directly at talkingcars@consumer.org. You can send all the negative comments directly to Mike Quincy. He loves getting those.
I can handle it.
And with that, let's get to talking about cars. So the first thing I wanted to talk about today was good cars that fly under the radar. And I can't think of a better example of that than the Kia Cadenza. I mean, this is a car, the first generation was a good car. Not a lot of people bought it. Not a lot of people seem to know about it. We just finished testing the redesigned second generation version. And I'm curious what you think about the car, and should this be on people's list? Gabe, do you want to go first?
Sure. So, the car is very much under the radar screen. It's a large car. It's very, very roomy. It has a slick powertrain. I mean, it really goes. Decent fuel economy, easy controls. I mean, this is a car that is very kind of undemanding. I mean, it may not be fun to drive, but it can be, if you're not too much of a connoisseur in terms of ride and handling, then you're getting a really nice car that will serve you very nicely. I mean, for me personally, when I look out the window and look at all our fleet, it's not the first car I'm going to run to and jump into. So, but there are a lot of people that would totally be happy with that car.
And the handling maybe isn't that fun, but the engine's pretty strong and the transmission's really smooth. I mean, so it's not maybe super invigorating, to take through a turn, but that engine's pretty nice.
And what a great road trip car.
Yeah, would you recommend this car to a friend?
Absolutely, because it is so quiet inside. The seats are comfortable, and one of the great things for me with the Cadenza and a lot of Kias and Hyundais these days are the controls are just a snap to learn. It takes about 2 seconds to figure out how to operate the nav system, how to pair your phone, how to choose your radio station, whatever you want. It's a super easy car to live with, and you combine that with decent fuel economy. It's a great road trip companion.
So I guess the question is, why does a car like this? Why is it not on people's lists?
Well, you have to acknowledge that there is a brand perception here. I mean, a Kia that's a large car and at that price point, I mean, it's brushing $40,000, is not going to be a natural choice for a lot of people. So that's something to contend with. I mean, and you have a lot of established kind of brands out there. You have the Chevy Impala, you have the Toyota Avalon, and plus this large sedan class, it's not a big segment of the market at all.
Big car, small segment.
Right.
And while you mentioned that it has a perception problem, I guess you're going to call it, because it's not considered a luxury brand. On the other side of that perception coin is reliability. A lot of people wouldn't think that a Kia would be reliable, but the last Cadenza was super reliable, and this one is also showing up really good data in Consumer Reports reliability surveys. So while you don't think the Cadenza is luxurious or Kia at all, you might not also think it's reliable, but in fact it's doing pretty well.
Yeah, so maybe it should be on a lot of people's lists.
Perhaps.
Another car in the same category is the Buick Regal. And, when you think of luxury compacts, what do you usually think of? You think of an Audi A4, BMW 3 Series, Mercedes C-Class, maybe a Cadillac ATS, right?
And what's cool when you think about the Regal is that it really is in kind of the sports sedan segment. At least that's how it shows up in Consumer Reports.
Right, but who thinks of a Regal as a sports sedan?
But the funny thing, I was looking this up before we went on the air, it actually outscores the BMW 3 Series. So you have a Buick outscoring a BMW, and who on earth would have ever thought that?
Yeah, so with the Buick Regal, I mean, the car is kind of like it falls between the cracks because nobody would consider it a family sedan, and no one's considering it as a compact sports sedan, as a legitimate competitor to a BMW 3 Series or an Audi A4. But the credentials of the car, I mean, the car is basically a German design. It's based on an Opel, and
Drives like a
it
European
drives
car,
like
right?
a totally well-honed sports sedan. It's enjoyable to drive. What it gives up compared to a BMW or an Audi, it doesn't have the interior quality, but
it's not bad.
It's not bad.
Not bad.
It's got comfortable seats. The handling is kind of taut and agile. It has good infotainment system, and that turbo 2-liter engine with 252 horsepower it's a dynamite engine.
And I keep coming back to this. It's got good reliability.
Right, but again, the sales numbers are kind of low for that car. I'm curious,
And it's also on its last legs because there is going to be a redesign replacing it in the fall.
Might
Right,
be
the
maybe a great time to get a deal.
That's what I was thinking. Though, well, besides that, with the Regal Sportback that's coming and the Tour X, the wagon version that's coming, they certainly look the part a lot more than the current car. I wonder if that will get it more on people's radar. I wonder if that's enough.
We'll see.
Time
will
Regal,
tell.
Regal, like much of General Motors, and certainly Cadillac, they have to get younger. They have to get younger buyers. The Regal was a good step toward that. The last LaCrosse that Consumer Reports tested was not a big, heavy, floaty grandpa mobile like the old ones were. So they're probably taking a few cautious steps toward getting a younger audience. And as you said, Mike, those cars that we saw at the New York Auto Show from Buick are looking really modern, really slick, and really pretty cool.
Yeah, actually, for Buick, I mean, the one model that really helped lower the age of the buyer is the Buick Enclave, and that is a large family-size SUV, 7-passenger, and there is going to be a redesign in the fall as well.
Yeah. Well, so I've brought up a couple. What do you guys have? Mike, do you have a good car that flies under the radar that people aren't thinking about?
Oh, I think one of the real sleepers out there is the Honda Ridgeline. Listen, it's a Consumer Reports top pick. So like the Regal used to be a top pick, and what the cool thing about the Ridgeline is it really fulfills most homeowners' needs for a kind of a basic pickup truck. A lot of times when you think a small truck, you think Toyota Tacoma. But as we know in our experience, Tacoma is a rough brute. It has a terrible ride. The seats sit on the floor. Listen, I'm a fan of how good it is off-road. I'm a fan of how tough it is. You can't knock the Tacoma's resale value. You can't buy a used Tacoma because they're so expensive. So forget about the image. Forget about a huge truck.
The image of not having a real pickup truck.
Yeah, the Ridgeline does so many things well. It is comfortable. It's got a nice ride. It has an easy-to-use storage system in the bed. It's got Honda, traditional good reliability. I think if forget about what all your friends might say about getting an F-150, which I love, and the Ram, which I love. I would totally look at a Ridgeline, and I love pickup trucks, but I wouldn't be ashamed to have one in my driveway at all.
Yeah, it's a smart pickup truck, as Mike said. It's got everything that anybody would need as a homeowner. May not have this Marlboro Man kind of image.
And it can only tow about 5,000 pounds, which
Right.
limits a lot of people with their trailers and stuff like that. But
Now, the last one wasn't a big seller. Do you think that had as much to do with the kind of out there styling as anything, or?
yeah, I think the last truck styling didn't do it for me. Obviously, the numbers weren't that good. I give Honda credit for sticking with it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, selling a pickup truck from any manufacturer is a good profit center. They can base it off of the Pilot platform and reuse all that tooling and all that stuff. So it's a smart move by Honda. I'm glad they're doing it again. But yeah, right now the sales numbers for the Ridgeline are way behind all the other trucks. So but that's why we're talking about it now.
And I get that it's a really great driving truck for a truck, but I said it once before on this show that there's a few things about it that I don't like, in that maybe it's just not trucky enough, and it's not for the reason of being trucky. It's that the bed is shallow, so things that are in it, like, I carry bicycles and I haul motorcycles. And for me, if the bed were large enough that I could put a bicycle in and put the tailgate fully up, I'd be on board if it rode like that. So what I need is something that rides and drives as good as it, but that has a little bit of a bigger bed. For me, that bed is just a little limiting for the things I do. But I get what you're saying, that a lot of homeowners don't need a huge bed, although you'd be surprised at things that you can't fit into the back of a small bed, when you're just go down.
Fair point.
Yeah. Gabe, what about you? Do you have a vehicle that you think is a really good car that most people don't think about?
I was thinking about the Subaru Legacy 3.6R. So it's a family car, and it has the 6-cylinder, and that engine actually transforms the car, and you still have the plush ride. That it has responsive handling. The effects of the adverse effects of the CVT, the continuously variable transmission, aren't felt as much with that bigger engine. The car is quieter, it's quicker, and it rides more comfortably than some cars costing twice as much. I mean, you get one of these for $34,000, and you have a car that is
a nice car.
A total sleeper. But I've recommended that car to a couple of people, and they're happy campers.
Now, why do you think people just don't know about it, or why do you think people aren't buying this car?
I think it's because it's more money than the 4-cylinder. It's less worse fuel economy than the 4-cylinder. I wouldn't call it a gas pig or anything like that. But I just also wonder how many of them do they have in stock? I mean, is the average Subaru buyer just going to walk to the dealer and say, well, what do you got?
No, that's one thing. Another thing is, you come to a Subaru dealer, you usually walk out with a Forester or an Outback.
Right.
Yeah.
And since Subaru doesn't sell a lot of 6-cylinders, we test them on occasion. Obviously, the majority of the Subarus that we test are 4-cylinders, and it's probably the one criticism that we have with those vehicles is that the engines are pretty smooth, fairly fuel efficient for having all-wheel drive, but they're not all that quick.
No, they're not.
No, the engine is can be a little tired. Right?
I think that's a really good choice. So I didn't think of that one when we were planning on this podcast, and that's a great sleeper right there.
I've got another one for you guys that is a little bit out there. It's not a mainstream car because it's in the ultra luxury segment, and for me, that's the Genesis G90. We have one right now that we tested, and I drove it the other night after not having driven it for a little while. And you get in it and you realize this car, our test car, is just a little over $70,000. And when you're driving this thing, it drives inside, the comfort, the controls, feels like about a $100,000 car that you're driving. And and it competes against cars like the Audi A8, BMW 7 Series, and it's generally thousands and thousands less than all of its competitors. This is a really nice car, but I think it's
you're talking $20,000 or $30,000 less than those cars.
Not a couple thousand, but a big difference in price. And yet I doubt it's going to sell like the way they do. And I mean, for this case, it might purely be a status symbol thing. Do you think it's that, or?
Well, just like we talked about with the Cadenza, I mean, you don't think Kia or Hyundai and luxury, and maybe that's one of the reasons that Hyundai just said, well, forget it. We're not going to try to sell them as Hyundais. We're going to just call them Genesis and start over, kind of like what Toyota did with the Lexus. But you're spot on. You're totally right about the G90 flying under the radar for luxury car buyers. And what dazzles me about the G90 actually is the back seat.
Yeah.
The back seat is enormous, and ours has that center armrest that folds down that gives you all the climate controls, all the audio controls. I mean, if you're going to be driven in a car, that is a great place to be hanging out in the back seat.
You can play VIP in this car as much as you want, but not only being driven, I mean, it's not a bad drive.
What a great drivetrain it has. It's really quick.
Exactly.
Effortless power. I mean, it's everything that you desire in an ultra luxury sedan.
If you took the G90 and you put a German label on it,
yeah,
I bet the reception would be different. Yeah. I bet the sales would be different.
Of course.
But what a technically proficient car. It really is really nice.
Yeah, you might want to swap places with your chauffeur every now and then.
Exactly, right. Exactly. Okay, I got one more for you guys. Ford C-Max. Obviously, when it comes to hybrids, the Toyota Prius is the 800-pound gorilla. I mean, no one can touch the Prius in terms of sales. But this is ranked not that far behind the Prius in our ratings. What's this car like? Should more people be buying it? Why are people not buying it in the numbers that they're buying the Prius?
So yeah, Ford is very advanced and very accomplished in the hybrid technology. Although everybody gives the credit to Toyota, but the C-Max as a hybrid and as a plug-in hybrid, I mean, these are very nice cars. I mean, it's a quiet, it rides well, it handles with agility, feels very sophisticated, and the first few years, it had some teething problems. It really had some spotty reliability record, according to our survey. But now, finally, it's at a point where it's reliable enough. So, and definitely more people should buy it, either as a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid.
Is the 37 miles per gallon overall? I mean, is that that's what the regular hybrid gets for the C-Max? Is that part of the problem?
It's a pretty big jump.
That is a big
compared
52
to
miles per gallon for the Prius.
Our last tested Prius in terms of fuel economy, but it's not. It's certainly not a deal breaker in my mind. I'm glad that we're now recommending the C-Max because of its great drivability. And I think the compelling reason, the argument that you give to somebody to convince them to buy a C-Max, is you just say, it's not a Prius.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the Prius image. It doesn't have the Prius look. It doesn't have any of the baggage that the Prius comes with. And that's, it's kind of damning it with faint praise, because technically the Prius is a pretty accomplished car. But there's also, I think, a real Prius backlash.
Well, there is that baggage cuts both ways. I mean, it gives you the green credentials, but there's also that backlash as well.
It's like Prius drivers and BMW 3 Series drivers. Who are hated the most?
Well, speaking of the Prius and speaking of cars that do also fly under the radar or aren't bought by a lot of people, we just finished testing a Prius Prime. Now that's the plug-in version of the Prius. So it's a new version of the, it's a new version of the plug-in based on the current Prius that we just tested. What do you think of this car, and have they improved some of the things that they really needed to improve over the last version?
Well, what a difference 4 years make. The last Prius plug-in was really a half-hearted effort. Toyota came up with it kicking and screaming, basically, saying, hey, we're a hybrid company and we don't care about these EVs. And
we don't want to give money to aftermarket companies that are doing it.
In the end, they offered one which was really not very much of an EV experience. It turned on its engine every time it smelled a hill from afar. And
whereas you wanted to just stay in electric drive longer.
Yeah, and this one keeps itself in electric mode more of the time, more often. It's still not an unconditional EV in cold weather and in high power demands like quick acceleration. It'll turn on the engine, but you can. We've been getting 22 miles plus of electric only. It takes 2 hours to charge it.
That's about double the last one, right?
Totally, yeah. More than double, because the last one was so reluctant to give you the EV experience.
Right.
So it's really a nice idea for someone who is thinking about has a very short commute and can plug at work, can plug at home, can plug overnight, and it's not like a Volt that's going to give you a 50-mile range, but with that kind of range and Toyota reputation, I think it's a pretty good entry, and it gives you a lot of other benefits in terms of tax incentives, state and federal, and the ability to drive in the HOV lanes, high occupancy lanes. So that's an advantage there.
Will people buy it? That's the question. People seem like they don't like to have to plug in hybrids. They're okay, I guess, plug-in electric cars because they don't have a choice. But if it's a plug-in hybrid, they seem to stay away from those because they're probably thinking, well, why don't I just get a regular Prius? It gets 52 miles per gallon already. Why do I have to plug it in every night?
Right, and a regular Prius is going to save you money. It's less money. The Prius Prime isn't without its compromises. I mean, you have less cargo room because the batteries are taking up space in the storage area.
It's only a 4-seater.
Yeah, that's true.
Only a 4-seater because you lose that middle spot. It's heavier. I wouldn't say it handles worse than the regular Prius.
It's pretty similar, actually. Yeah.
But you do feel a little bit of that heft. I don't know, Mike. I don't know how you convince somebody to buy a plug-in when the regular Prius is so good, especially with the price of gas these days, which is
That's
not
the other
that horrible. And I've seen it for the last 20, 30 years. When the price of gas goes up, people stand in line to buy the small fuel-efficient cars. Gas is relatively cheap for the United States. Those cars just go begging on dealers' lots.
Yeah.
There's one other thing here, and the plug-in hybrid is not a very well understood kind of concept. The level of awareness among the public is very low. Is it a hybrid? Is it plug-in? I mean,
Right.
what's the range? Am I going to get stuck? So there is a lot of misunderstanding out there about plug-in hybrids.
And I think that's actually a good point, because when you're driving a Tesla or you're driving a Leaf, it's obvious, this is different.
Right.
And the people that know cars are, well, that's an electric car. The Prius Prime is not that radically styled that differently than the regular Prius. So you're not really making that statement that you might want to make as a green carb driver.
Right. Well, speaking of EVs, we have a reader question here that I think you guys might be interested in tackling. The person says, can you please give us more information about EV and hybrid batteries? I was wondering if EV and hybrids are actually more environmentally friendly than their gasoline counterparts. While EVs and hybrids don't emit or emit less pollution while driving, manufacturing them surely produces quite a bit of pollution. And how are the batteries being recycled afterwards? Also, have you guys noticed a significant increase in your electricity bill when you are testing EVs like the Model S, Leaf, etc.? Now, I think, Gabe, what the person's really talking about is not so much manufacturing of the cars and even the batteries, but more about what is your power source for driving these electric vehicles down the road. Is it coal? Is it wind, solar, natural gas, hydro? That's really the question as to terms of, how clean is that energy source, right?
That's a lot of questions.
Yeah. Loaded.
Yeah. So
We don't have a lot of time.
Yeah. So anyway, it really depends on the state you're in and the power source. Here in Connecticut, we're at about 70% natural gas, so that's pretty clean. Coal source is on the decline, and you're driving a car, producing a car. The metal, the glass, the plastics, the rubber. There's no. You want to be environmentally correct? Ride a bicycle, like you do. So.
I thought you were going to say get a horse.
No, I'm not going to say that.
Those are bad emissions too. So
Right. And they poop all over the place.
He has another part of the question.
He's wondering about
our consumption here.
Right.
Anyway, just in case he wants some numbers, I'll give it to him. For the past few years, ever since we started testing electric cars, we've used 13 megawatt hour of electricity charging these cars up. But there are other parts of the equation here. We've also been saving 5,300 kilograms of GHG, greenhouse emissions. So there's that. And in the process, we also saved 1,600 gallons of fuel.
Okay, so
but the downside, and I've not necessarily, I'm not going to call myself an electric vehicle skeptic, but the research.
you're labeled that now for sure.
Yeah, the research that according to the EPA, the national average is about of coal usage for energy is about 38.7%. And that is still the most used source of electricity in the United States. So sometimes when people say, well, it's a zero emissions vehicle, well, actually, it depends where you live, like you said, Gabe. If you're getting a lot of your electricity from coal-fired plants, you actually have a lot of emissions. You just have a longer tailpipe, which is kind of what we've been saying for a while. So as long as the country can move closer to renewable energy, less coal production, I think that's going to be a boon for people that want to do well for the environment and driving electric vehicles, because the technology obviously has never been better, and it's probably only going to get better.
All right. Well, I think that's about going to wrap it up for this episode of Talking Cars. If you want to learn more about the cars that we talked about today, you can click on the links in the show notes below. And as always, thanks for watching, and we hope to see you next time.